Pandora makes it easy for you to find your favorite music. Discover new artists and genres by selecting any song or album, and we'll make you a personalized station for free. Download on the Apple App Store or Google Play and enjoy the soundtrack to your life.
When it comes to quality sleep, Ashley has you covered with top mattress brands at winning prices and with special financing options available. You can snooze now and pay later. Plus, your mattress purchase helps give the gift of better sleep to children in need and U.S. Special Operations Forces. Visit your local Ashley store or shop online today and make every snooze count. Financing is subject to credit approval. See store or ashley.com for details. Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man that does this job simply for the thanks of a great nation. He is the captain.
I just do it for the free booze. It's good to be seen, and it's good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
This week we are featuring Smithwick's Irish Red Ale brewed by Guinness. You're going to love the clean and refreshing taste. I love the ruby red color. Garage Grade 3.5 bottle caps out of 5. And now let's give some thanks and praise where it is most certainly due. First up, a big cheers and a bunch of thank yous go out to Kevin H. and the marketing team up at the Akron office.
And a big shout out to Stormy in Huntington Beach, California.
Now let's go local, Captain. From here in Columbus, actually in the POW area, more specifically, here's a cheers to Lisa M.
And a big we like your jib to Stacy in Lewiston, Maine.
And last but certainly not least, we have Amelia in Torrington, Connecticut. Everyone we just mentioned went to truecrimegarage.com and contributed to this week's beer fund, and for that, we thank you.
If you'd like to get more True Crime Garage, check us out on the Stitcher app for all of our old episodes and our bonus show called Off the Record on Stitcher Premium. And that's enough of the business.
All right, everybody gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. This week, we load up the flying garage ship for a tragic mystery far away. Some may say across the pond. Over to an island in the North Atlantic, touching down in Ireland. As of 2016, the population of Ireland was about 6.6 million people, ranking it one of the most populous islands in all of Europe. The geography of Ireland comprises of low-lying mountains surrounding a central plain. The climate is influenced by the Atlantic Ocean and thus very moderate. The winters are milder than most would anticipate, but the summers are cooler than most of those in continental Europe. Irish culture has significantly influenced other cultures and shares many features with that of Great Britain, including the English language and sports like football, rugby, horse racing, and golf. But none of that, of course, is why we are here. No, we are here due to the result of circumstances that are truly unpleasant. We are here because of Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, which is a term commonly used by the media when referring to a number of high-profile disappearances. During the 90s, over a span of about 5 years and 4 months, at least 8 women vanished from an 80-mile area outside Dublin, in the Leinster area, and what became known as the Vanishing Triangle. 6 of these cases are particularly well known because of the investigations they precipitated. Due to similarities, some believe a serial killer or serial killers were active in this area during this time. The Irish police have set up many investigative operations, and unfortunately, much of this effort has failed to produce any substantial clues. We often see that law enforcement will not show their hand in most investigations as a simple but intelligent strategy. It is only when desperation truly sets in that they do so, and that is the case here with the Triangle. You see, the nature of these disappearances are so unexplained and random that the Irish media needed to create an ominous moniker similar to that of the Bermuda Triangle to truly convey the full scope of this mystery. But the name was created by the media, and therefore does not tell us of the level of desperation on the part of the investigators. No, it is their actions that take us beyond the curtain. Most rewards are offered up as a bounty for an arrest, leading to a conviction of a perpetrator of a crime or crimes. In these cases, a reward is offered up for information resulting in the recovery of a body. This week, join us as we take a focused look at the first case in a series of disappearances of young women so patterned and perplexing it became known as Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. This is True Crime Garage, and this is the case of Annie McCarrick. Annie McCarrick was the only child of parents John and Nancy McCarrick. She was born in March of 1966 and lived with her parents in Bayport on Long Island in the great state of New York. She was very close with her parents. John was a retired New York City police officer, cheers to the boys and girls in blue, and Nancy was a school administrator helping to educate and raise America's youth. Nancy's parents were born in Ireland, and Annie grew up loving Irish culture. In fact, Bayport was populated with thousands of Irish immigrants, and Annie grew up steeped in Irish culture and Irish Catholic traditions. While she was enrolled at Skidmore College, this was in 1987, Annie took a trip to the Emerald Isle. She fell in love with Ireland and transferred to National University of Ireland at Maynooth in Dublin to finish her BA. After she graduated, her parents insisted that she return to the U.S. to get a graduate degree, which she did, obtaining a master's degree in English from SUNY Stony Brook. But in January of 1993, against mom and dad's best wishes, the then 25-year-old Annie returned to Ireland. Now, she had lots of friends from her college days there, and it sounds like that's really where her heart was. Well, she is going to need somewhere to live when she returns there. So while looking for a flat to lease, she's going to shack up with some of her old friends. This is an engaged couple. Their name's Hillary Brady, which, just point out, that's a man, baby, and Rita Fortune. Hillary was the brother of an ex-boyfriend of Annie's. His name is Philip Brady. She eventually settled in the idyllic, upscale seaside suburb of Dublin called Sandymount, where one of her literary idols, the poet James Joyce had once resided. Even though she already had a graduate degree, Annie planned to take courses at St. Patrick's Training College to get her degree in education so she could teach high school English. She supported herself by working long hours as a waitress at a place called Cafe Java, where customers loved the pretty, sweet, young American girl that worked there. Her best friend from Bayport Blue Point High School on Long Island, Linda Ringhouse, said of Annie, she had a love affair with Ireland. Quote, she loved the food, she loved the people, she loved the music, she loved the books, and she loved the scenery. She jokingly says she even loved the plants. Linda said that Annie told her, quote, it's almost like I lived there in a previous life. Annie was 5'8" tall, so a tall woman with strong features, intense eyebrows, and an unruly curly dark hair. She has been described as vivacious and friendly, a total people person who loved company, who was always smiling and outgoing, but probably a little naive in general about people. Now let's take a moment here to address the setting for our listeners who aren't familiar with Ireland and the Dublin area specifically. The Republic of Ireland is a democratic nation which had a population in 1993, the year that Annie moved there, of about 3.58 million people. Now, it's a separate country from Northern Ireland, which is much smaller and is part of the United Kingdom. The quiet residential area of Dublin, where Annie lived, is just 6 kilometers, or about 3.75 miles, from downtown. Ireland is a very safe country in general. In 2017, for example, there were only 41 homicides. Sandymount, where Annie's flat was one of the safest areas of Dublin. Annie told friends that she felt much safer there than she did back home in New York. In fact, one of the women who worked with Annie at Cafe Java said that Annie would often walk home alone. Sometimes this is even at like 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Captain, on to the disappearance. A little warning here, though, first. Annie was not abducted in the sense that no one claims to have seen her being tossed into a vehicle or to have heard a scream or really anything of that nature. So we are going to go through about 3 days of what we know, and included in this are some things that have been reported but may not actually be confirmed. Some of these things are unconfirmed. So as you will see, there is no clear timestamp here in our timeline where we can say for certain, okay, here is when things started to go wrong, or at this time we know Annie is in trouble. The 3 days we are going to go through will be a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, with really the day in question primarily being the Friday, March 26th, 1993. Okay, so listen closely, and Captain, chime in if anything I say gets confusing, okay? The police, or Gardaí, as the Irish National Police Force is called, were able to reconstruct some of Annie's movements leading up to her disappearance. We know that she worked at Cafe Java on Thursday evening. And when she finished her shift, she had said that she would come in the next day, which would be Friday, this to collect her wages and drop off some homemade pies. She was quite the baker. So often the restaurant, or whatever you want to call Cafe Java, they would pay her to bake things at home, and then she would bring them in and they would sell them there.
Mm-hmm.
Her next scheduled shift was on Saturday. Okay, so Thursday evening she works, tells her employer or coworkers, I'm coming in tomorrow to collect my wages and drop off these homemade pies. However, she's not technically working on Friday. That's her day off. Her next actual work shift schedule is on Saturday.
So this leads us to the Friday morning.
Yes, that's correct. What we know that takes place early on Friday morning we have her two roommates who says that they kind of say goodbye to Annie at this point. These are two ladies that she shared her flat with in Sandymount in a complex called St. Catherine's Court. The two other ladies, this is Ida Walsh and Jill Twomey, were headed off to visit their families. And what they popped into Annie's room simply just to say goodbye. Hey, we're getting ready to leave. At this time, they say that Annie was sitting up in bed and she was knitting. She told Ida and Jill that she planned to go for a walk that day. And we're going to refer to this as, this to me seems more of a like planned hike, not just a walking around town situation. But right. In all the reports, it's often referred to as a walk. Hiking seems to be something that Annie did fairly regularly. And we'll get into that a little bit more, as that's fairly important to the story. Now, the two of them, her two roommates, say that they left the flat at 8:50 a.m. And so now Annie is going to have the apartment to herself for that weekend. She did have some upcoming plans as well. She planned a dinner party for herself at the flat with friends to celebrate her birthday.
Yeah, her birthday was about 5 days before?
Yeah. So we know that she had some plans, and we have a general version for that weekend of what the plans are to be. But now we're going to start getting into some things that we don't know exactly what happened.
But we also know that the following weekend, so she has plans for that weekend. Saturday, I'm going to make some food for my friends. We're going to have a little get together here. The following week, my mother's going to come into town.
Correct. So she's got things that she's looking forward to as well. You know, she's got Friday off.
Well, it depends on if you like your mother or not.
Or your friends. She's got Friday off. She tells her employer, hey, I'm going to stop by for these reasons. We know she's scheduled to work on Saturday. Her dinner party is going to be after her shift on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And then, as you stated, Mom is coming into not just the town, into the country to visit me in about a week. Now, we do know some things that happened for certain. One, we have CCTV footage that captured Annie at the Allied Irish Bank in Sandymount sometime before 11 a.m.
Right.
I get a little frustrated here with these reports, Captain, because it's closed circuit TV footage saying that this is sometime before 11 a.m. So to me, it's not really clear how this time frame is not more specific or more exact, considering that she's on video.
Yeah, every CCTV camera, their clock is always wrong.
Yeah, we've done like 380 episodes. Mm-hmm. So we've covered well over 100 cases, and anytime there's security footage involved, they've never seemed to have the clock right.
Right. It's a tricky thing.
It's very true. What time is it now? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
So it says sometime before 11 a.m. in the reports that I've found. Now, she is visible on the CCTV footage wearing a knee-length coat and carrying a satchel. At the bank, she is there chatting and talking with staff who say they knew her. These are people that say, not only was that Annie, but we know her not just, as a customer, whatever. We've seen her multiple times. Apparently, there are a few different versions, and you and I were talking about this in the garage earlier, of what her activities were that day at the bank.
Mm-hmm.
What time is it now?
Who knows? Clocks are off by about an hour.
There are stories that say she was simply making a deposit or a withdrawal.
Right.
The more specific reports that I've read, Captain, say that she was actually transferring an account to this branch from another branch from a different area of town, and making a bit of a leap here.
Right. And I've heard the opposite, that she's actually taken her money out of this bank to open up a different account at a different bank.
Okay.
So
I'm making a bit of a leap here,
say.
but if we go back to what we do know, we know that she fairly recently moved to this specific area.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem likely that she could be transferring an account to this branch.
Mm-hmm.
She has a car, but the car, you will notice, is really absent from this story. My understanding is that it was a manual transmission, and you know how it is. Some people buy those and they don't know how to operate a manual transmission. It sounds like she wasn't comfortable doing so. And so you'll see throughout this story, she's often walking places or getting on a bus.
Right. That's how our community was set up anyways. It was not that far from Dublin, so it was considered the best spot to live if you wanted to commute in and out of Dublin.
This sounds like an idyllic place to live if you you got a little bit of schooling you want to finish up.
Mm-hmm.
You got this cool job working at Cafe Java. You can walk basically everywhere that you need to get, be it to a pub or to the bank or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a fantastic place. Now, my thought is because she's recently moved there, maybe she was transferring an account for whatever reason. Regardless of what she was doing there that day, we know several things. One, she's seen by people that know her.
Right.
And she is captured on surveillance footage.
Yeah, and you can see the footage for yourself. And just by looking at a handful of pictures of Annie and then looking at that footage, it's very clear that's 100% her.
And I'm going to make another leap here that I think is spot on, my friend. Not only because we've seen it a million times,
mm-hmm.
but the next part of the timeline kind of clears this up, right? So she then goes to the Quinsworth supermarket,
mm-hmm.
where her receipt, which would later be found in her apartment, the receipt is time-stamped for 11:02 a.m. for that day. So that tells you that, yes, the clock on the surveillance footage is wrong, and so they know that it was before 11 because she was at the supermarket at 11 making these purchases. On her way back to her flat, she used a public phone kiosk to make 2 phone calls that we know of. She could have, I want to stress this, she could have made more calls,
mm-hmm.
but we are aware of what 2 of these calls were. And
again, this is 1993, so there'd be public phones everywhere.
Yeah, payphone, a public phone kiosk sounds so much nicer than payphone. And I don't know if it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't have to pay, I don't know. But my understanding is that the phone they had in their flat, their landline,
mm-hmm.
it didn't always work.
Mm.
And so it was not uncommon for her to use one of these public phones. Now, let's get to the calls. One of the phone calls was to her friend Hillary, just confirming that he and Rita would be coming over for dinner on Saturday,
mm-hmm.
just to firm that up a bit. The second call was to a female friend named Anne O'Dwyer. Annie invited Anne to go hiking with her later that day. The chosen location for the hike is an area called Enniskerry.
Mm-hmm.
According to their visitor website, the village of Enniskerry is located just 30 minutes south of Dublin City and is the gateway to Wicklow, which is referred to as the Garden of Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Widely regarded as one of Ireland's most charming villages, Enniskerry is a wonderful place to visit, live, and work in. That's not my endorsement. That's from their website.
Yeah. Well, I don't think their website's going to go, come here.
It's a real dump.
It's a real dump.
More importantly to our story is that one of Annie's favorite, this is one of her favorite areas to hike. And she had been there many times before, often with this friend that she's calling and asking, hey, do you want to go with me later today for a hike?
Right. We've done this before. Let's do it again.
Again, judging from what I could see on their site, on their website, this is a very scenic area with waterfalls and gorgeous views. So
I've seen pictures. It's a real dumpster fire.
It makes sense that this would be a desired place to go hiking. Now, Anne, her friend, not Annie and Anne, it gets a little confusing. Anne, her friend that she invited, had recently suffered an injury to her ankle, an ankle injury. And she told Annie that she could not go along with her that day. Annie then tells Anne, hey, that's fine. I hope you feel better, but I might go anyway by myself. So this call to Anne was really the last known contact Annie had with any of her friends. At this point, it appears that Annie returned to her flat.
Right.
It is not known exactly what she did in the next couple of hours, but it seems that she made some pies and did some laundry. Sometime after 1 p.m., a plumber saw Annie leaving the apartment complex, heading toward the New Grove Avenue bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
He says the two said hello as they recognized each other. A second witness, this is Bruno Borza, owner of a shop nearby, says he saw Annie flag down the departing number 18 bus, shouting for it to stop. This bus was headed along to a westerly route to Ranelagh, and it did not run very often, Captain. So Annie's flagging this bus down rather than waiting and waiting and waiting for the next one to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
The bus stopped, and she boarded the bus, and the bus drove off. Before we move on, I do want to note something here. We have the plumber who says that sometime around 1 o'clock is when he saw Annie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he's using to judge this time off of. You know,
Sundial.
I don't think he's saying that, hey, I looked at my watch and I saw her walk by at 10 after 1.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the items that we get into after this in the timeline, it would actually seem that time stamp should be pushed back a little further, that this likely happened around 2 or 2:30, which doesn't really mean much. I mean, we just have an eyewitness saying, yeah, I saw her leaving the complex, and I believe it was around this time. It might, in fact, be just a little bit later. Now, in Ranelagh, Annie was seen by a former colleague, someone who says they knew her well. She's seen waiting in line for the number 44 bus. This is around 3:40 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
This bus was the one that ran to Enniskerry, which would be about 12 miles away in the Wicklow Mountains, where Annie told her friend Anne that she had planned to go on the hike.
Right.
The colleague, named Amir O'Grady, did not get a chance to speak to Annie as she sat downstairs on the bus while Annie sat in the upper deck. When Amir got off, I guess they got off in Milltown.
Is Amir a guy or a girl?
A girl.
Right.
She says that she did not see Annie get off the bus at any time. So her assumption is that Annie was still on the bus when Amir gets off,
mm-hmm.
and then, Annie's getting off at a different stop later. What's strange about this is, according to this timeline, Annie would not have arrived in the mountains to begin her hike until around 4:15 p.m. In late March, sunset was typically at 6:45 p.m. So a lot of people have brought this up, that it seems like she's going to a lot of trouble to go on a hike that might be less than 2 hours or last about 2 hours.
She's taken 2 buses. That's not that big of a deal.
But she's traveling far from home to a desolate area.
It's not that far.
I think that's
under
debatable.
20 miles.
I think that's debatable. Where I combat that debate is, I'm a person that enjoys hiking. However, most of the hikes I go on are fairly short. And in fact, they're shorter than 2 hours. So,
kind of seems like you don't like hiking.
No, the trail that I like is close to my home, and you can take it 3 different routes. One would take you about an hour and a half. One takes an hour. One takes about 40 minutes. I prefer the hour-long one, selfishly, because a lot of the podcasts I listen to are about an hour long. So the hour-long trail works well for me. But to the defense of the people that say, hey, this seems like a lot of movement here to go hiking by yourself for a short period of time, the trail that I take that's on that short hike is very close to my home. It's incredibly convenient. Nevertheless, all of these sightings of Annie on Friday the 26th seem to be accepted by the Gardaí as pretty reliable, which I guess it seems pretty logical, because either the witnesses were all people who were acquainted with Annie, such as the former colleague Amir,
right,
or they were able to describe her accurately enough that police were comfortable that their information was correct.
Well, let's dive into that right after this quick beer break.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you look forward to the holidays? Maybe you struggle with seasonal blues. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or even anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/garage today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/garage.
To get the football you need this fall, get Hulu Plus Live TV. Stream all season long with over 90 live channels, including ABC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and more. Hulu Plus Live TV also gives you access to Hulu's entire streaming library, including Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, all in one plan. Say goodbye to clunky cable boxes and extra cable fees. Get all the sports and entertainment you need with Hulu Plus Live TV. Live TV plan required. Restrictions apply. Access content from each service separately and select ESPN Plus content via Hulu. Learn more at hulu.com.
Whether you're making the same breakfast that you have every day or baking a cake for an extra special day, eggs are a staple in our diets. Eggland's best eggs are nutritionally superior to ordinary eggs, containing more vitamins and 25% less saturated fat. Not only are they better for you, but Eggland's best eggs taste better too. There's a reason that they're America's #1 eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com for additional information and delicious recipes.
All right, we're back. Cheers, mates.
Cheers to you, Captain. Cheers to the Dayton Flyers. I'm a huge Dayton Flyers fan now. Obi Toppin, my boy. We're going to go win a championship.
You're going to go
I
play
got
basketball.
I got the Buckeye.
Are you into basketball as much as you are into hiking?
More so, because it requires no hiking. These next two sightings of Annie are much more up for debate. And rightfully so, because I think you'll agree with me, Captain, there are some serious questions as to whether they are accurate or not. So a woman who worked at the post office in Enniskerry, who was interviewed, this is in the weeks after Annie's disappearance, said that a tall American woman came in on that Friday to buy some stamps. Remember that since Annie was not native to Ireland, she would have stood out simply by virtue of her accent.
Right.
And remember also that these are small towns, really villages, where people know each other and recognize faces. But let's keep in mind, no one can say for certain if it was Annie that the postal clerk saw, but let's say that it was and that the clerk is correct. If she was correct, then Annie was at the post office in Enniskerry between 4 and 5 p.m. This would mean that perhaps Annie decided to hang around in Enniskerry rather than go hiking. The next sighting is one that is hotly debated. It is a sighting supposedly of Annie at Johnny Fox's pub between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. This pub, dating all the way back to 1798, is a known tourist destination referred to as Ireland's highest pub because of its mountain setting at 920 feet above sea level. And Annie had been there before. This would not be her first rodeo, as they would say.
Yeah, this is a tourist hotspot.
There you go. There were an estimated 350 people there that evening.
There's a lot of people at a bar.
After seeing Annie on the news, a bouncer named Sam Duran came forward and told the Gardaí that he remembered seeing a woman that night who he was certain was Annie.
Right. He was the guy, the bouncer at the front of the bar collecting. There was a cover charge that night because there was music.
That's correct. Yeah. She's trying to get into this. It's like a separate event area of Johnny Fox's, the Hooley Room, that was putting on a traditional Irish folk music show where I would be seen there river dancing my face off.
Right.
The bouncer told her that there was a 2-pound cover charge, and he says that she seemed surprised by this and began to, she's rummaging through her bag looking for money to pay the cover.
Well, and this gentleman has a very thick Irish accent. And so that's another thing that would give Annie away, would be the fact that she was American, spoke English, but with an American accent.
Right. Well, and this is where I think the
unless she was like one of those posers that started like trying to talk like she's Irish just because she's living there,
or an Irish lady that is a poser trying to speak sound American.
Right.
What is that movie? Crap, I can't think of it. It's one of the
that doesn't help much.
One of the diehards where the foreign terrorist guy, he's like, all you have to do is chew gum and you sound American.
Oh,
it's pretty easy to do. Apparently,
it's possible.
So
just say Walmart a lot.
The thing, though, too, that I think gets a little dicey with a lot of this is 5'8" fairly tall. It's above average height for a lady. She has an American accent. It's almost like...
But the tough thing, though, too, is that she does have Irish features.
She does. But could you see a situation where somebody gets confused because they saw a tall American woman and just made the leap that it was, in fact, Annie, especially in a place like this that is known for tourism, to have a lot of tourists visiting? This seems like a very American thing to go to if you're visiting Ireland.
Well, first we have the plumber. I question that just based on the time. As far as like, did he see her? Probably he saw her. What time? Was it 1? Was it closer to 11? We've seen constantly with eyewitness reports them being completely wrong. And so could he have, did he see Annie on her way to the bank? I don't know, but at least we know that somebody saw her that day, but that doesn't matter anyways because we have her on CCTV. And then she's flagging down this bus, possibly. She would probably be more known to people in her area anyways because she's working at a coffee shop, and how many of those individuals go in and get coffee and see her and maybe not know her personally, but know her through the coffee shop.
Her, yeah.
And there's probably not, there's a handful of American students in school with her, and so they were all kind of popular by default. So we don't know. We have no 100% proof that she got on that bus. We don't have any kind of record that she bought a token or bought a pass for the bus. We have no clue. So we have no clue if she even got on the bus. From there, we have somebody that supposedly knows her, but doesn't actually make contact with her.
Doesn't speak with her. Yeah.
Right. So again, there's been several times that I've been places where I thought I saw somebody. Oh, that's my buddy. And you start walking over. Nope, that's not my buddy. Is that possible? It's definitely possible here. So really, we have no proof where she's at all. And so can we, there was actually a investigator from Scotland Yard that worked this case, and he kept saying, if you get to this point that we're at this bar and you believe this individual and you believe this bouncer, and he says, I know 100% for certain it was this girl. Again, he doesn't know her.
Right.
So other than pictures and his memory.
And he sees her on the news, and he's like, oh, yeah, that Friday, she was in line, and I remember telling her it's 2 pounds. Right. So it's not even like it's not later that night he's telling somebody this. It's not. And look, again, I'm not faulting this man.
Right.
I believe he's trying to help the situation. I just question if seeing that many people that night in a touristy area, if he was in fact right. And here's the other thing too. When you see a picture of somebody on the news, we've done this with other disappearances or really other victims in general.
Right.
You see one picture of that person, and I mean, with Amy Mahalovic, she's got that one famous missing persons poster,
right?
The flyer. And if you look at some of her other pictures or that video of her up in front of the classroom giving a presentation, she doesn't look like that famous photo of her.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at with that is, what did this gentleman see on the news to lead him down the road of, oh, yeah, I saw her? And I think we should add a little more detail, because he does have a little more detail to his sighting.
He was saying that she was searching for the money, and then this gentleman behind her was like, I'll pay for both.
Yeah, he says a man in his late 20s who was standing behind her in line offered to pay for them both.
But this also makes somewhat sense because they would have been similar ages.
And he said, regardless if it was Amy or Annie or not, the woman accepted his offer.
Right.
The bouncer says that this man was at least 5'8" tall, wearing a 3/4 length waxed canvas jacket. He's of athletic build, clean shaven, with a short military style haircut. He was holding a pint of beer. As we said, the man paid, and Annie, or the woman, thanked him, and she walked into the Hooley room with him. The bouncer
he called this gentleman flat-chested with broad shoulders, which is, I've never actually heard that term. He was describing an athletic build.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never heard flat-chested, what that would mean for a man. Flat-chested, broad shoulders. I'm guessing just maybe skinny.
Yeah, athletic build.
But he would have a good, if Annie's 5'8", and let's just assume it's her, then he would have a good indication of how tall this individual was. Oh, he was roughly about the same height as her, maybe a little bit taller. So 5'8" to 5'10".
Yes, and that's what I think the specific report says, that in that 5'8" to 5'10" range. He also says that he does not recall seeing Annie, or at least the woman he believes to be Annie, again at any time that night. And according to the Long Island Daily News, an exhaustive canvassing of the area turned up no one else who recalled seeing her at Johnny Fox's that night.
Well, see, I have different reports that a handful of people
said it was possible that they saw.
it was possibly that they saw her that night. Backed up the bouncer's story.
But what we can agree on here is it's far from clear whether Annie was actually at Johnny Fox's at all that night.
Or if there was just an brunette American, roughly 5'6" to 5'8" in this pub.
Yeah.
That's a tourist hotspot.
The other thing, too, is the pub, Johnny Fox's, is about 3.5 miles from Enniskerry in the village of Glencullen. If Annie was there, we don't have anybody telling us how she got there. And what was she doing in the Enniskerry area all evening leading up to this? Because this is between 9 and 11 p.m. at night that she's supposedly seen at Johnny Fox's.
Right.
So there's nearly a 4-hour time period between these supposed sightings of when Annie was, she's unaccounted for. So something really, if this is not Annie at all in these other sightings, then something happened before this. well before this.
Right. It's really difficult, but most investigators believe the friend that saw her getting onto the next bus to take her to her destination, take her to the place that she told people she was going to go hike that day.
Mm-hmm.
Most investigators believe that eyewitness. So if you believe that eyewitness, she is in that area. Yes,
right.
This pub is 3 point some miles away. That's not that far, depending on which part did she hike. Did she meet up with people? Did she call her friend, Anne, and her leg was, hurt, and she called somebody else? Is there somebody that she knew from her past, male or female, that she just was like, well, I'll call them when I get up there?
Or she made additional calls at that public phone that we just don't know of. I mean,
or possibly made another stop at a different phone, because again, I don't know how big that city is, but back in the early 90s, there's payphones all over the place, at least here. So I'm just assuming that there'd be more than one local phone that should make calls at.
The other thing that we have to question, too, is at some point in the night, the buses will stop running. So if she was at Johnny Fox's at 11 p.m., that's at the later end of that possible sighting of her. But if she is there at that time, how was she planning on getting back home to Sandy Mount if, in fact, she intended to go there?
Right.
And I did see our friend Jessica pointed out that somebody on Reddit, so take this with a grain of salt. We don't know.
I take everything with a grain of salt. Which I got.
She said that somebody on Reddit stated that taxis back in 1993 in that area were very uncommon. So once the buses were done, it seems like your public transportation options are nil. So you're going to have to rely on somebody else to get you back home or stay with somebody that night.
Let's break this down real quick. So we know that she hits the bus roughly about 1 something. That leads her to another bus around 3 something, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So
that bus would get her into this area about 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock.
Yes, she would have been there at 4:15.
Okay, so roughly 4 o'clock. And when we get there, if I'm going to go on a hike, let's say it's 2 hours. That's going to put me in about 6:15, 6:30.
Yeah.
By then, I need to make my plans on if I'm going back.
Right.
But if you're hanging out with some friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
You made some other arrangements. You're meeting up with a guy. Now you have other options. And so what's interesting is we have these sightings of Annie, but in this crucial time, like you said, where you're going to have to make some arrangements, seems like we have no sightings of her.
Right, and here's the other thing that you have to consider in this thought. If she made plans with other people or another person that we are just unaware of,
right?
We're unaware of that person because they chose not to come forward and tell us, hey, I hung out with Annie that evening. That means that person did something, is responsible, or knows what happened to her.
Yeah.
So here's some other things that I think we should consider as well. And this is where it makes it even more confusing regarding the whole Johnny Fox possible sighting. It was later discovered that there was another American woman there at Johnny Fox's that night, that Friday night, who actually resembled Annie and was dressed in a similar manner.
Right.
Apparently, this other woman really confused things in the course of the Gardaí's investigation because it was unclear which sightings were of this other woman and which sightings were that of Annie. So much so that, in fact, the Gardaí tracked down this other woman and asked her not to wear certain types of clothing because when she did, they kept getting phone calls saying, "Hey, I spotted Annie at this place. I saw Annie, the missing woman, at this place."
Right, we're gonna need you to only wear bikini tops from now on.
Yeah, and it turned out to be, her. Now the man,
right, but here's what we know for certain: this lady went to that bar. There's eyewitnesses of that girl being at that bar. They tracked her down. She's alive. And I'm going to tell you that, to me, this sighting doesn't mean anything later, but we'll have to get there.
Well, what I have in my notes here is that the woman, as you said, they spoke with her. She says that she was not the woman in line that got paid for the cover charge, got paid for by some man that she didn't know.
Right.
She says, I was there with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and she would have remembered, hey, this guy paid for me. Right? Like, so I think that clears up that there was another American girl in that bar. Somebody paid for her way in, not this lady.
According to a 2019 article appearing in University Express entitled Ireland's Vanishing Triangle Unanswered, Annie McCarrick, this alleged sighting, the Johnny Fox one that we've really gone round and round about,
right,
is now strongly believed not to have been Annie at all, but just, as you stated, some other American person, likely a tourist. Other sources are certain that the bouncer saw Annie that night, but truly, what I think we can agree on here, Captain, the upshot here is we don't know for certain whether it was Annie or not. It sounds like both you and I are leaning toward that it was not Annie.
No, that's not what I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying it's a possibility.
Gotcha.
But that's weird that they're making claims that they don't think it's her. You know, the only other claim, we have other claims of people in the bar that say that they possibly saw her. It could have been the other girl that looked like her.
Mm-hmm.
But we have another, like you're saying, the Stamps was within that vicinity as well.
Yes, much earlier, but about 3.5, 4 miles away.
Right, but again, it's maybe 15 minutes to walk a mile.
Right.
So
now, one thing we do need to state here, and our regular listeners will not be happy to hear this at all. This is according to an Irish Times article about Annie's disappearance. She was known to hitchhike around Dublin even at night and even by herself. Apparently, many young people at the time considered this a valid form of transportation, that it was safe to do this in this area. We did mention how safe Ireland is, and this area specifically. So
yeah, it's so safe that we have a triangle of missing women.
Right.
It's so safe.
So is it possible that it was Annie at the pub, and maybe she planned to hitchhike her way back to the apartment complex after the pub closed or after that, going to that show? And when she did, something bad happened. Or as we said, perhaps she met up with someone, or perhaps she hit it off with the man who paid for her in line, and then things went bad.
Yeah, but they also, a lot of people at the bar believe that not only did this man pay for her to get in, but that they sat together and he actually bought her drinks all night. Now, if that's true, and a lot of people believe that if it was Annie in the bar, that she would have had to be there with somebody paying for things because she didn't have the kind of money that she could go to. This is not just a normal pub there. This is a tourist hotspot.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they do with the prices?
They jack them up, my friend.
Right, they jack them up.
Top dollar.
Yeah, that's what she said, jack them up. But so a lot of her friends, a lot of people speculate if she was in the bar that she would have had to be with somebody that would be paying for the drinks. And to me, it's more likely that she'd be getting a ride back to their place, or they told her, I'll give you a ride back, or whatever it would be. But it's also, like I said, it's not extremely far away. It's not like she's 50 miles from home, 100 miles from home. She's within 20 miles from her house.
Yeah, and again, that leads us to the other problematic portion of the story. If, in fact, she did meet up with this man in his 20s, who it sounds like the bouncer has reason to believe that this man did not know Annie prior to offering to pay for the two of them to get in. We've already mentioned her picture on the news. We've already mentioned that this was actually a really big investigation over there at this time. Part of that is because it's an American woman in another country who went missing.
Right. Part of that is we have a lot of missing girls. Now on top of that, we have a missing American.
Well, she's the first in the series, so these other ones haven't occurred yet.
Oh, well, and don't rain on my parade.
We'll get into that in tomorrow's episode. But what I want to point out here, again, we have another situation where we talked about earlier. If she's meeting up with somebody that knew her, that was supposed to be her friend, and they've never come forward, that's highly suspicious. Same situation here. If she sat and spoke with this man, hung out with him that night long enough for him to get to know her, and he's never come forward, then you have to be highly suspicious of this unidentified young man that was at Johnny Fox's.
That's why I believe the bouncer assumed that these two were together. The actions and I'm looking for money. Oh, don't worry about it. I got it. Again, if it was just somebody that you just bumped into in line and you heard about this girl going missing and you went, I paid for her way to get into that pub. Make a phone call to the police. Oh, by the way, I was the man that paid for that lady's way to get into the pub. I don't know her. I was there with another group of friends. We didn't even sit with her. Or maybe we did sit with her, but we don't know what happened to her because we never saw her leave. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If it was purely innocent or the person didn't know this girl, then why wouldn't they come forward and just say, oh, yeah, we saw her at the bar. I paid for her way to get in. And that was it. I don't know her. But so to me, if this girl was Annie, she was there at a bar with somebody that she knew.
What we do know that happened is the following day on Saturday, Annie did not show up for her shift. She had a morning shift at work. She does not arrive to this. This is completely out of character for her.
Yeah, it was like a part-day shift.
Yeah.
And then she was going to have her friends come over, and she's not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So no one, I guess, really raised the alarm when she didn't show up for work. It sounds like the alarm bells start going off that Saturday evening when Hillary and Rita, the two friends, showed up at the flat, at Annie's flat, at 8 p.m. This is for their planned dinner party. They say no one answered the door after repeated knocking. The pair eventually decided, hey, let's go to this pub, sit down for a little bit. Maybe she's running late or whatever's going on and she's not home yet. We'll kill about a half an hour. They try to...
Bad choice of words.
Yeah, sorry about that. They go to the pub, and then about a half hour later, they return to Annie's flat. They're knocking again, still receiving no response. Eventually, they went home. Yeah, probably a little confused, a little upset. They had plans.
You're expecting a dinner.
Right, right. They decided to try to call the flat, to try to call Annie, but apparently, I guess they realized they did not have the number. So they called Nancy, Annie's mother, who was at home, just to get the number. Say, hey, we're trying to get a hold of Annie. We realize we don't have her phone number.
Right.
They told Nancy that Annie wasn't home for their planned dinner date, but Nancy, too, did not really make much of this.
Well, she could have got stuck at work. There could have been an emergency that she just didn't let anybody know about yet. No need to panic after a couple hours.
Correct. Meanwhile, Annie's roommates, they returned Sunday evening and found that Annie had never unpacked her Quinsworth bag of groceries that she had bought. She made these purchases on Friday. It was sitting just inside the front door with things like meat, cream, and butter inside, things that should have been refrigerated.
Mm-hmm.
It was later confirmed that the bag contained everything Annie purchased at the grocery store that Friday. They also found wet laundry. This is Annie's clothing. Wet laundry in the communal washing machine for the apartment complex.
This is where it's so confusing for me. First, it seems like that time where you got friends coming over the next day.
Mm-hmm.
You went and did a little errand, maybe got money from the bank, maybe switched your account, then you get a little food from the grocery store. Now you got to come back. You're doing a bunch at once. Going to do a little cleaning, got to put the groceries away. I got to do a load of laundry. But normally you don't, those things you finish. At least you get the clothes from the washer into the dryer. You at least put the food into the refrigerator. It seems like all that got stopped. And it's so strange to me that people just assume that all those things got stopped and then she jumped on a bus and went for a hike.
Yeah, that's what's troubling here. And they also found a pie on the counter. You know, we said Annie was making some pies and some baked goods for Cafe Java that she was going to drop off on Friday. Remember, that's the day in question. There's a pie on the counter. So this is what the roommates find when they get home Sunday evening. And eventually they hear from Hillary, the friend that was supposed to come over Saturday evening.
Right.
They call the flat. He calls the flat, speaks with the two roommates who have now returned and says, look, yeah, she wasn't home when we tried to go there yesterday for our scheduled birthday dinner party. And now the roommates and the friends over the phone are starting to put some things together and say, hey, this doesn't seem right here. Something here just does not feel right. So Hillary, the friend, calls up Nancy McCarrick, Annie's mother.
Right, calls her again. And
remember, she wasn't worried the first time, but now by this point, Annie could have been missing for 72 hours.
Yeah,
and didn't show up for work or for her own dinner party.
Right, but if I go over to my buddy's house and I open up the washer and there's a load of clothes in it, no big deal. People do that all the time. But if I walk into somebody's house and there's bags of groceries, maybe just a couple of them, but has maybe milk or meat or whatever, something that could go bad, I'm going, there's an issue here. To me, that's a big red flag.
That's right.
All right, thanks for joining us here in the garage. For more True Crime Garage, check us out on the Stitcher app and check out our bonus show called Off the Record. We have over 90 episodes available of Off the Record.
That's on Stitcher Premium. We got a lot more to get to in this case. Please join us back here in the garage tomorrow. Until then, be good, be kind, and don't litter.
Hey, Brad, you know how Nationwide is more than an insurance company?
Yeah, they're one of America's largest financial services companies.
We get that in a song like business, life, retirement.
Or Nationwide's there to protect.
I'm kind of the jingle guy.
Not sure I agree with that.
Well, I'm not sure I like your hat.
Well, it would never fit on you.
Products issued by Nationwide Life Insurance Company or Nationwide Life and Annuity Insurance Company. The general distributor for variable products is Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.